The air on Threshold Station always smelled faintly of antiseptic and recycled vegetables, a sterile scent that humans seemed not to notice. To Kalen, a Xylosian diplomatic attaché with sensitive olfactory frills, it was a constant, low-grade assault. For 5 years, he had served as the primary liaison to the human delegation, and for 5 years, he had found them to be a perplexing, often irritating species. They were loud, tamon de humor, revolved around self-deprecation and the absurd, and their concept of personal space was, to a Xylosian, aggressively non-existent. But they were undeniably useful. The Terran Confederacy, despite being relative newcomers to the galactic stage, had a knack for fixing things. They were exceptional engineers, fearless explorers, and their military, while small, was tenacious. And they were the ones you called when a mining rig collapsed on an asteroid or when a research team got stranded on a volatile planet. They showed up, got the job done with a lot of cursing and caffeine, and asked for payment in exotic metals or rare earth elements. It was a straightforward, transactional relationship that the more established galactic powers, like the Xylosian hegemony, found convenient. Lately, however, the humans had become difficult. A border skirmish had erupted in the Vortex Nebula. The insectoid Krechak had been encroaching on a mineral-rich system that both the hegemony and the Confederacy had claims to. The Xylosian Admiralty, confident in their numerical superiority, had demanded the humans cede their claim. It was a bluff, a test of resolve. The humans, instead of negotiating, had simply left. Kalen was in the observation lounge, reviewing the final Che Shouqing Dan, when Ambassador Ava Rostova walked in. She was a typical human female of average height, with sharp gray eyes and hair the color of iron pulled back in a severe bun. She carried a data slate and a cup of that bitter, dark liquid they were perpetually consuming. "Attaché," she said, her voice flat. "Just the final inventory for the station master. Environmental controls, power couplings, all our equipment. We'll be out of your fur by 1800 hours. Kalen's frills fluttered with a mixture of irritation and disbelief. "Ambassador, this is unprecedented. You are abandoning a strategically vital system. You are abandoning your claim. The hegemony will have no choice but to fill the void, to protect the trade routes." Rostova took a long sip from her cup, then her eyes fixed on the swirling nebulae outside the viewport. "It's not abandonment," she said quietly. "It's a strategic reassessment." "A reassessment?" Kalen's voice rose, a clicking sound in his own throat. "This is a retreat. Your people are leaving behind a fully functional station, years of investment, all because of a simple diplomatic disagreement. The Council will see this as weakness." She finally turned to look at him, and for a moment, the coldness in her gray eyes made him take a step back. "The Council can see it however they want, Kalen. We're done here." She tapped her data slate. "Sign the form." He didn't sign. He couldn't. His orders were to delay, to negotiate, to force a compromise. But the humans didn't play by those rules. Over the next few hours, he watched them work. They moved with a quiet, yet practiced efficiency. They didn't sulk or complain. They dismantled their equipment, packed it into standardized crates, and loaded it onto their boxy, utilitarian transports. Their military personnel, the ones in the simple gray uniforms, were the most unsettling. They showed no sign of defeat. If anything, they seemed more focused, their movements sharper. As the last shuttle lifted from the docking bay, Kalen stood with the station master, a bulbous Viridi named Turgon. The vast bay was suddenly silent, cavernous, and empty. Where the humans' section had been was just bare metal deck plating and disconnected power conduits, like gaps left by pulled teeth. "Well," Turgon buzzed, his single eye swiveling towards Kalen. "That was abrupt. A most peculiar species." They fought like demons for every square inch of that asteroid belt during the initial surveys, and now they just hand it over? Perhaps they are not as resilient as we thought. Kalen watched the last light of the human ships disappear into the star-speckled black. A strange, cold feeling settled in his gut, a feeling that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. Perhaps, he murmured, echoing Rostova's words, or perhaps they are simply preparing to be. The silence left by the humans was filled quickly. Within a year, the Xylosian hegemony, with the Council's blessing, had formally annexed the disputed system. They poured resources into it, establishing a new, larger administrative hub on the central planet, and deploying a significant portion of their fleet to patrol the trade routes against the Krechak, who had been momentarily cowed by the show of force. The galaxy, it seemed, had made a sensible adjustment. The loud, messy humans had been pushed aside by a more mature, stable power. Kalen was promoted for his handling of the threshold extraction, as it was officially termed. His superiors praised his firm stance that had led to the human retreat. He was given a new, prestigious posting, a strategic analysis role at the hegemony's central command. His job was to monitor all known species, assess threats, and update tactical databases. The human file was closed. He marked it as non-expansionist, tactically risk-averse. 5 years passed. The Krechak grew bolder, testing the hegemony's patrols. A minor trade cartel from the Rigelian systems started causing trouble. It was the usual galactic churn. Life went on. Though Kalen's frills had long since become desensitized to the sterile air of the command center. He rarely thought about the humans anymore. Then, the long-range sensor array, a masterpiece of Xylosian engineering, picked up the anomaly. It was at the extreme edge of the galaxy, far beyond the explored spiral arms, a region thought to be empty space, a void between galaxies. The energy signature was unlike anything in the database. It wasn't the warp flare of a single ship or the steady thrum of a colony. It was a cascade, a rolling wave of displaced space-time, as if a significant portion of the universe was being folded and refolded. "Report," the Supreme Admiral rumbled, his massive form dominating the command platform. "It's growing, Admiral," a trembling analyst said. "The mass readings are off the scale. It's as if a new star cluster is emerging." For 3 agonizing days they watched. The energy wave approached the galactic rim. Ships were dispatched to investigate and vanished without a trace, their last signals garbled by impossible interference. Panic began to spread through the hegemony's inner worlds. The Council was in emergency session. On the 4th day, the wave crested and then subsided. And where there had been nothing, there was a fleet. It was not a fleet in the sense the galaxy understood it. It was a migration. Thousands of ships, yes. But they were not the sleek, aesthetic vessels favored by the Xylosians or the organic horrors of the Krechak. These were vast, angular structures built with brutal geometric efficiency. They bristled with weaponry that glowed with unknown energies. They were accompanied by massive construction platforms, titanic resource harvesters, and what appeared to be mobile shipyards, each one the size of a small moon. They moved with a coordinated, silent purpose, a single terrifying organism, and they were heading directly for the Vortex Nebula, directly for the system the humans had abandoned 5 years ago. The communication channels erupted with panicked, multispectral signals. The Xylosian fleet scrambled, assuming defensive positions, their confidence evaporating as the scale of the incoming force became clear. It was overwhelming. 10 to 1. 100 to 1. The numbers ceased to matter. Then, a single clear signal cut through the chaos. It was on an old, archived frequency, the one the human delegation had used on Threshold Station. A familiar face appeared on every view screen across the hegemony's fleet. It was Eva Rostova. She looked older, leaner, her gray eyes holding the same chilling calm. Behind her, Kaelin could see a bridge that was a cathedral of machinery and light, crewed by focused humans in simple gray uniforms. Xylosian hegemony, her voice was quiet, but it filled every bridge, every command center, every council chamber. This is Ambassador Eva Rostova of the Terran Confederacy. We are returning to the system we vacated 5 years ago. Our claim, as registered with the Galactic Council, remains active and legally binding. The Supreme Admiral sputtered, his mandibles clicking furiously. This is an act of war. You cannot simply appear with this armada and expect us to... Rostova waited patiently for him to finish. When he did, but she continued, her tone unchanged. We are not here to fight, Admiral. We are here to build. We withdrew to consolidate, to advance our technology, and to construct a force capable of securing our territory permanently. We are now that force. On the command platform, Kaelin's world tilted. When humans withdraw, it means they're returning stronger. Rostova's final words to him, which he had dismissed as propaganda, now echoed in his mind with the force of a supernova. They hadn't retreated. They had reassessed, retooled, and reemerged. They hadn't been playing the game of galactic politics. They had been playing a different game entirely, one on a time scale and scale no one else had perceived. The Xylosian fleet, for all its numbers, was obsolete. The technology facing them was a generation, maybe two, ahead. The ships, the weapons, and the very purpose of the human force was on a scale that dwarfed a mere border dispute. The council chambers descended into frantic, fearful debate. Fight? They would be annihilated. Surrender? The political fallout would be catastrophic. They were trapped by their own short-sightedness. As the debates raged, the human fleet began its slow, deliberate approach. It didn't power weapons or issue threats. It simply moved, a force of nature, reclaiming what it considered its own. Construction drones swarmed from the mobile yards, beginning to assemble a massive new space station in the very orbit where the small, abandoned human outpost had once stood. It was a statement, silent and undeniable. They weren't just back. They were back to stay, and they had built the means to ensure it, not in the galactic core, but in the quiet, in unforgiving darkness where no one had thought to look. They had used the void itself as their forge, and what they had forged was a future on their own terms.